I think it's fair to say that yesterday's budget was influenced to a very large extent by the Minister. Do you accept that that is the case and that he was constrained in the largesse he could dole out yesterday, and that obviously there may be people unhappy, but there is a very, very big picture, and that's the uncertainty surrounding Brexit?
Of course there's a big picture, and I appreciate that, but I thought Social Justice Ireland summed it up very well in their headline today when they say the budget betrays the vulnerable as many are left further behind. There is always choices to be made within a budget, and we show that, I suppose, in our alternative budget, notwithstanding the fact that we had to allow, which we'd been saying all of the time, and I've spoken to you about it on radio before, in terms of the rainy day fund, and in terms of having that as a Brexit contingency fund, if you like. Now, the government did come on that page yesterday. We don't believe that they allowed enough for that. But if you look at the choices that were to be made, I mean, I think it's astonishing that the government didn't introduce a wealth tax, as we had said, for the wealthiest, 0.25% in the state at a rate of 1% on the portion of wealth that they hold over €1 million. That would give us 89 million. That would buy a lot of drugs for people who are dependent, who their lives are dependent on it, and many, many other things. So they choose not to. They choose not to do that. Then this carbon tax that they've put upon people. Now you'd say you have to do that because of climate change, but we have to remember that in the last 10 years, 3.35 billion has been collected in carbon tax. Last year alone, we collected 435 million in carbon tax. That hasn't changed people's behaviours. The reason it hasn't changed people's behaviours is because people like us in Mayo and in rural Ireland are dependent on cars because we haven't had the investment in public transport. And you have a housing stock that hasn't been upgraded as well, or the people can't afford to have their houses insulated and all of that. So until you have alternatives, you cannot try and change people's behaviour. But then we only have to look internationally in terms of, the impact of carbon tax and other places on residential households. And this is on residential households, and yet we find that the residential sector accounts for only 9% of Ireland's emissions. We have 400,000 people already living in houses who are living in energy poverty. We have no carbon tax in England, and their emissions reduce. In Norway, there's a carbon tax since 1996, and their emissions have increased. So what they did around the carbon tax, and that's why, we in Sinn Féin are very much against the carbon tax, because we look at things like the Carb Gas project and we see that they can get away for 20 to 25 years without paying any corporation tax. But it's easier to tax the person, the elderly person who's living alone, who's wondering can they turn the heat on, or somebody who needs to fill up the car to go to work. It's wrong.
At the end of the day, though, and finally, Rose Conway-Walsh, and I'm blue in the face saying this, isn't this all about money, about a huge capital investment in so many respects, and that, people are simply not prepared to do the obvious in relation to climate change, and that is to agree a significant increase in taxes in order to deal with a situation that may well cost Ireland between now and getting this done, something in the region of, I saw one figure quoted, 50 billion. I mean, it's not just going to happen.
Yeah, but it's on who we tax, Aidan. In addition to the carbon tax that we have, government has collected revenue from 15 other environmental tax. That's taken 5.5 billion in 2018 alone. So it's where you tax and where you put the tax burden. And what we're saying is you put the tax burden on the major corporations who are responsible for most of the emissions as it is. So it's where you put it, but it seems like that we always go for the people who are less well off. And I think that's why Social Justice Ireland are talking about a betrayal of the vulnerable people. The very fact that, you'd have the thing even around the wealth tax. Oh, we can't tax that because they'll move out of the country. But, the widow living just outside Castlebar or in Castlebar, well, she can't move anywhere. So we'll tax her. We'll put some extra on her. And this burden keeps increasing and increasing.
Yes, but Rose, if you were... Sorry to cut across you, and briefly, if you were to, for example, increase corporation tax from 12.5% to 20%, many of these multinationals would be gone. There'd be serious unemployment and further fiscal implications as a result of paying them unemployment benefit.
Oh, for sure, and that's why we would certainly, the 12.5% is the right, is the right level for us. I think it's a competitive level, but it's a lot of the corporations who don't pay the 12.5%. And when you look at it, with the tax breaks and all that, now a couple of the tax breaks were addressed yesterday, but we've been saying for years, and we've had, Pierce Doherty has had 9 budgets by now. We've been saying for years that has to be done. So I do welcome that fact that they have looked to close a small number of those.
And maybe that's
now, that is because
the start,
of OECD
perhaps.
pressure as well. So it's the start. But, you vulture funds who don't pay any tax, they've charitable status. Isn't it so wrong?
Very good.
It's so wrong.
I have
€2 for people, for a thing of briquettes.
Very good. Look, we have to leave it there. Rose Conway-Walsh, Senator Rose Conway-Walsh, as always, many thanks indeed.